Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
I'm excited to hear about your books. We have author Kevin C. Smith today. He has some adventure pirate books, and I haven't dove into this world of adventure pirate books, so I'm super excited to learn about your world and your characters. I know you have 4 books in the series. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start at the end, or do you want to start at the beginning?
Well, let's start at the beginning just to give kind of a storyline on the main character. The main character is first person in the book. He's the narrator, the protagonist and narrator. So imagine he and a young brother, I never gave ages, but figure about 10 to 12 years old. They're orphans in London. Now that's a death sentence, because if you don't have anybody looking out for you and you're trying to live on the streets as a young person, God help you. It was really a rough period back then.
Okay, so, and what can you really quick give me a time period here too?
1700.
1700. Okay, great.
Early 1700s. Sorry. Okay, so he has the brothers have an uncle, and he has cataracts. He's a deacon at a basilica in the city, and he cannot clean the church anymore. That's part of his responsibility. So he says, okay, boys, why don't you come in? I will provide an education for you, provide a lodging and food, and your jobs will be to clean the basilica and also to maintain or keep down the rat population, which lives underneath the basilica. Hence the name Bilge Rat, and it just carries on. What happens is they run into a bully. The bully has it out for both brothers. He eventually kidnaps the younger brother. And in the process of trying to find him, the bully doubles back and slaughters the uncle.
Oh my goodness.
Leaves behind the boy, the hero's knife. He had a pen knife with his name on it. So now he is implicated in the murder. Oh. He has no choice but to flee. So he jumps on a merchant ship, and he and his brothers had been roaming the docks and visiting the ships at night, just sneaking on, sneaking off. And they ran into a cook who kind of befriended him, and the cook gave him the 2 knives. They each had a knife, a pen knife with their names on it. So he runs to the cook and says, I need to get out of town. The cook says, come on, we're going to the West Indies. You'll be part of us. So that's the start of the voyage. And from there, he runs into pirates. He runs into all kinds of craziness along the way. Now, what I wanted to do was give this character special abilities. Nothing supernatural, nothing superhuman, because I thought that was kind of corny. What I decided I would do is a couple of things. One, he would be highly educated. So the uncle provides him with an incredible education. During the time, not many people were educated, only the upper class. So he is versed in mathematics, languages, science. I mean, he's pretty well versed. The second thing, in working in the basilica, cavernous basilica, if you can imagine, he's practicing his language lesson because there's an echo. So he can hear the language lesson come back to him. And in the process, he learns how to throw his voice, how to duplicate sounds and throw his voice, which we'll use as I go through. He'll get out of different problems through misdirection. He'll throw his voice one place, everybody looks that way, and he does something that changes the situation, but nobody knows it or sees it. So that's kind of the magic that he has. So he's incredibly intelligent, good leader, but more importantly, it's this secret, what I call the special voice. that nobody else knows about. He keeps it secret. So that's the story in the series. And as we go along, there'll be different pirates, there'll be different nemesis that he's going to be up against.
Interesting. And so does he age up?
He does age, and that's interesting because as I start, like the first book, he's doing kid-like stuff. So as the books continue on to the fourth, he's become a captain, and he has to lead men. And the age back then, it was a brutal life. I mean, 36 was top end. You're going to live to 36. You were pretty good. So probably he's in his teens, but he's leading men. And he has to age up. I have to age him up as he goes along.
Interesting. And so was this ship a ship that was, you say a pirate ship, but he becomes the captain? Are they still pirates? Are they stealing stuff from other things? Or was
it's interesting because the pirate world was divided into two categories. There's pirates and there's privateers. Now the privateers got a letter of marque, which allowed them to steal, be a pirate against enemy ships. So again, if England was fighting with France, you would get a letter of marque from England that you could go out and take French ships. So in a lot of ways, he's not truly a pirate. He's working under a letter of marque.
He's sort of a contract military person.
True. He's a hired gun, basically. And he has to obviously kick back the proceeds, much of the proceeds, to the government that gave him the letter of marque. So he'll work with a governor from one of the islands. They'll provide the letter of marque. X% has to, like a third, would have to come back to the government. And probably the governor kept most of it. That's just the way it operated back then.
Right. It sounds like you did a lot of research. Are you a history buff, or are you a history person, or you just love research?
My life is very interesting. I had absolutely the greatest job in the world. I worked for the Kellogg Company. I was executive vice president of marketing, and I got to decide all the toys that went in the cereal boxes for years. So I'm responsible for billions of toys, second only to McDonald's probably. Oh, and wow. As I always said, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. So for years I did that. So there was thousands of packages, thousands of promotions, toys left, right, and center. It was just wonderful. I got to be young and think young. When I retired, and I retired early, I had to find something to do. And my wife said, well, why don't you just write about pirates? You've always loved pirates. I researched pirates all my life. The first time I saw Peter Pan, I fell in love with pirates. The Disney's Peter Pan. That's how long ago it was. And my wife said, why don't you take a crack at it? And maybe you can write. Because I've never taken a writing course, never a creative writing course. I've taken English classes, I guess, because we all had to. But we didn't write a whole lot, at least not creative writing. So it was my wife that encouraged. I started writing, and it seemed to be, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It filled time, but I enjoyed doing it. And one thing led to another. And here we are 4 books later.
That's super exciting. So the series title is The Bilge Rat, B-I-L-G-E rat. Is that is bilge a common term?
Bilge is the lowest level of the ship. That's where all the water drips down. So it's this sludge, and that's where all any merchandise is stored down there. Gunpowder is stored down there. It's the storage area of the ship, but it's mired in this muck. Just imagine smelly, terrible smelling muck amongst the ballast stones, which are at the bottom of the ship. Right. So bilge, and their ships are full of rats. So hence bilge rat, the lowest form on a ship. Pirate adventurer is the series title.
Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking it might be like a little bit playing on the fact that the boy probably starts at the bottom on the ship ranking pecking order, and then he moves up as he,
That's absolutely true. That's
his,
part of it too. From the bottom of the ship up,
right.
from being an orphan to being a captain on a ship. And during that period, it was interesting. Most people didn't change stations in life. You were born to a station, you lived in that station, and you never expected to move out of that station. And that's what was so interesting about pirates, because they just made up their own rules. And they said, I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm going to go out and rob. And when I come back, I'm going to have a good time because I've got a lot of money to spend. And they spent like drunken sailors. You know, they were looking for food, women, and and especially drink. They were psychopathic drunkards. They were. That's if the best description. Now, when you see everything that Hollywood has presented, you know, you see Tyrone Power, or you see Douglas Fairbanks, or you see Johnny Depp, and they were paladins. They saved people. They were Robin Hood-like, stealing from the rich, giving back to the poor, or finding and saving a damsel from distress. All untrue. That's really not the way it happened. And that's what I was trying to do with these books, is trying to get a more realistic perspective on what pirates were and what they were all about. And they're interesting. I mean, they were very interesting characters.
Well, I mean, they live life and death. I mean, I guess everybody lives life, or takes risk every day. But it seems like the risk when you're on a ship, especially one of those ships that was really tiny in a huge ocean, you're taking much more risk at that point than the normal person, I think.
And then you're robbing merchants, and if you have anybody chasing you, you could wind up dying on the water. And the interesting thing, one of the interesting things I found was sailors during the period didn't learn how to swim.
Oh.
Yeah, you say, wait a minute, they're on water. Well, their theory was, if I learn how to swim, what good is that going to do if I'm in the middle of the ocean? I'm going to die regardless. So what's the difference? Why would I need to? And also during the period, taking baths was really a bad thing. If you took 2 baths a year, you were probably on the majority. 2 baths a year. So it could have been pretty close. You're in a small ship with a bunch of smelly animals. Tough duty.
Yeah, but probably that was normal for them. So
it was normal for everybody, even on the landlubbers.
Right.
They were worried that the vapors from the air, when you tried to wash yourself, would invade your body and therefore make you sick. And doctors, no, there weren't many doctors, and doctors would amputate or put leeches on your body. Yeah, it was a tough time. And so, in a lot of that, I've interweaved. As he goes along, he gets educated by 3 sisters. They kind of adopt him. They become his aunts. And one is a medical practitioner, mostly herbal healing. The second is a palm reader. And the third is an actress. So between all 3, he learns different ways, and he uses every bit of it as he goes along.
Interesting. So you talk about the fact that, they really weren't out to save anybody or help the little guy.
No.
How did you put redeeming qualities in this character?
His redeeming quality is he's always fighting the bullies, the bad guys. He'll get captured by pirates. So, he'll have a ship. He'll be on a ship. The ship will be captured by pirates. He has to be part of the pirate crew, because your choice is join us or you're getting dumped overboard. That's how they recruited. Now, what they would do is, with the captain and probably the first mates, they would stick them in a rowboat and let them take off. Now, they didn't give them oars. It was a death sentence. But they would keep the men that they thought they could use, the sailors they thought they could use. They coerced him into joining. And that's what he has to do. He has to join. And in the process, he's got some brutal leaders, but he tricks them, and he does all kinds of terrible things to them. And eventually he wins. At a price. There's always a price.
Well, don't tell us the punchline, so we don't want to give too much
No,
away.
no, I won't. I won't. And part of, when I started doing research, and I've done a lot of research, it's almost like the pirate writers of the time were plagiarists because everything's the same. You start reading and then you jump to another one. You say, wait a minute, let me look. That's the same thing, the same words almost. And I started to say, well, why would that be? And if you think about it, the pirates were illiterate. They didn't have the ability to write. There wasn't a ship's log. They were illiterate. If they were literate, seawater would destroy a lot of paper, a lot of paper. The captains, this is kind of interesting. Captains were voted in and out, very democratic on a pirate ship. You voted a captain in. If the captain did well, great. He got 2 shares versus your 1 share. He didn't rob and steal everything. He got 2 shares versus your 1 share. If he didn't do well, if he ran out of liquor in the middle of the ocean, guess what? He was ousted and we had a new captain. So very democratic. And then if you have on board public record that you're a pirate, you get hanged. You get hanged because that again, it's evidence against you. There's nothing you can say or do when you have hard evidence sitting there in front of a judge that says, here's what I did today. I robbed this French merchant and here's what I got off of it. Guess what? The noose gets tighter and tighter.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're in a French court and you stole something French, and you were working for the English, but would the English give you this paper and then still prosecute you? Or
no?
Okay.
If you're a straight pirate, they would. But if
Okay,
you had a letter of marque, that kind of gave you a clearance.
okay.
Now you could say it would, but then let's look at Captain Kidd. He had a letter of marque. Okay, he wound up stealing from an great big Indian ship where he took everything. At the time, the East Indian Company was trying to open up in India. The Maharaja complained to the East Indian Company. They in turn went back to England, and he became a criminal. And when he was finally brought in, letter of marque or no letter of marque, they hanged him, and because of the pressure of the East Indian Company, which was so important to England at the time. So yeah, letter of marque sometimes could get you in trouble. Nothing was a given.
Right. That's super interesting.
It was unique. It was just a unique period. French were fighting with the English. I mean, it went on and on. The golden age of piracy. Now, this is another crazy thing. It lasted about 25 years. Okay, about 1700 to about 1725. They'll argue plus or minus a few days, but it's really 25 years. 300 years later, we're still fixated on pirates. 25 years, 300 years later. And that's the effect they had on us because they were devil may care. It was a short life, but a merry life. They knew they were going to die. Almost like, if you think about it, the drug people today, these young kids who are involved in drugs, they're making more money than they ever would in any job. And this is what the pirates were, but they knew they could die. That was part of it. And they said, okay, so be it. I'm going to have fun while I'm young.
Interesting analogy there. I hadn't thought about that one or heard that before. So, but
it's
you're right.
such a draw. If you're in the inner city and somebody says to you, you can make more in a year than you will make in your entire life, that's a heck of a draw. It's hard to say no to that. It really is. And same with pirates. What happened was there was a peace between the European nations about 1700. There was a lot of people, a lot of sailors that were put out of work because the Navy didn't need them anymore. There was no war going on. So they're all sitting around these ports in the Caribbean saying, now what are we going to do? Let's steal a ship and go start stealing. Because the cargoes going back and forth were incredible. It kept increasing. merchandise from the islands would go back to England. England would send trade goods back. There was plenty of people to rob. Now, merchants never really had cannons. They didn't have any kind of guns on their ships, not really. They weren't there. They were there to transport goods back and forth. All those goods were insured. So any captain, any smart captain, and he was under attack from pirates, would say, okay, stop. We're not going to go any further. Lower the sails. They're coming on board and they're going to take it. It's not our goods. They're covered by insurance. Let's hope we live, because we can't outrun them and they're going to blow us out of the water. Now, pirates never wanted to blow anybody out of the water. That's all the trade goods. Everything on that ship was of value. Why would you want to blow it up? You can't. Especially the booze. You don't want to blow the booze up. So what they would do is they would fire cannons in front of them just as a warning. And as they came up, they would vapor, what they called vaporing. They'd get up on deck and go crazy. Noise, a band playing military tunes, screaming, yelling, I'm going to cut your throat, I'm going to kill you, I'm here to get you. It scared them. It scared the merchants just to stop. Let them on. We're not going to get away. And when they got on, they would rape and pillage the ship, take anything of value. The captain and his mates would wind up in a rowboat without oars. And anybody that was of value, they'd say, okay, you're now pirate. And you have to sign on the round. They had official rules. Each pirate ship had, believe it or not, rules. And you signed in the round. So there was no signing below. So anybody was more important than the other. Kind of a King Arthur analogy there. The round table was around. They'd signed around this document on the edges. And signing it is put X's. They couldn't sign their name. There was no way. They were illiterate.
Interesting. So, but it seems like to me that the merchant would hire pirates to help protect them.
Well, see, it wasn't it's not their merchandise. They're captains of the ship, so they're transporters. They don't own the merchandise. The companies that do own the merchandise have those merchandise. It's all being insured by Lloyd's of London and other insurance companies. So if they lost it, if it was stolen, it was replaced through Lloyd's. So why would I risk my life for merchandise I don't own that's already insured? That's pretty much the mentality. We can't outrun these people because we're heavier, clumsier, they're in lighter, faster ships. So, and they've got more guns than we have and more men than we have. So guess what? Stop, let them on, let them take what they need.
Interesting. I actually have a unique connection to pirates. Well, not pirates. Was Sir Francis Drake a pirate? I don't know if he was or not.
Yes, he was. Yes,
okay,
he was.
So, yes,
he was a bit earlier than.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering because so my family tree goes back to his cousin Charles Drake. So I am
Yes, you do.
A little bit of pirate blood there.
There's a little bit of pirate in each of us. That's all I keep saying. That's as I sign some of the books, I'll use that. There's a little bit of pirate in each of us.
I love that. Yeah, a little bit of that. I want to be free.
Now these books are written. It's interesting. I try the first person, all descriptive. I have very descriptive books, and it's not. There's not a quote that I remember putting in. So it's not written like a screenplay, for example. That's how a lot of books today are written like screenplays. They'll give you, conversation and quotes and let you fill in the blanks. When you write descriptive, you have to fill in the blanks, and you have to be careful because you can't write too much or you bore the hell out of people. If you don't write enough, they don't understand. So the way I write is very visual. As you read it, you can envision what I'm talking about. There are no old style. There's no conjunctions. There's no swearing, and there's no sex. And so I know
what age reader is
it can. We said young adult, but I've had a lot of adults read this and have a lot of fun with it. So I think it's a crossover, to tell you the truth.
Right. Yeah. But you
know what's nice?
A 12 or 13-year-old.
A 13, there's some brutality, okay, but there's brutality in every video game they're playing at 13. It's controlled brutality, and the good guys usually win. Um, it's been fun. It's been fun writing them. And there is romance, which I like. And what's interesting, I really thought, would women have an issue reading these books? And some of my biggest fans today, the few people that I hear from are women. And they truly, when is he going to get back with so and so? Is it, because he leaves them on one island, and goes to another. And when is he going to get back with her? She's my favorite. You better get him back there. Or or the biggest question I get is what happened to his brother? Where's his brother?
Oh yeah.
That'll be solved.
Okay.
Yet to
So
come.
okay, so the fourth book in the series is coming out or just came out.
It
And
is.
that one, the name of that one is The Viking Pirate, but you're going to keep writing in this series.
I am. I have at least 2 or 3 books in this series that I have to finish, and that will solve the brother, and it'll be a surprise at the end.
Fine.
It'll be a surprise. I know what the ending is in my mind. I just have to get there now.
Right.
But that's always been the case. I knew from the very start where I was going to go with it, kind of book by book, but then you have to fill in the middle. That's the tough part. And I'm old school.
Yeah, it was
I can't.
interesting to me that in one of your questions, it said that you make extensive outlines and handwrite most of the first copies of the books.
I handwrite everything. I'm old school. I tried on the computer and it intimidated me.
Hmm.
It just, and I couldn't think because I was too worried about trying to do the computer. By doing the handwriting, I can think, I can scratch out, I can change, and then I put it on the computer and then I edit the heck out of it. You get so tired of editing as an author, you get to the last couple of times you do it and you just want to scream. You do, you just want to scream. You say, I don't want to do this anymore. And my wife is saying, if you do that again, if you go through that book again, I'm going to cut your arms off. So yeah, that's just part of the deal of being an author.
Well, that's why I hire my editor. So I don't, I mean, obviously I'm going to look at it again and proofread it, but yes.
Yeah. Editor is incredibly important for me. And what I tried to find was women editors. The reason I did was, as a man, I don't show enough emotion on certain areas. And what they'll do is say to me, Kevin, you need more emotion here. There's not enough. It's too cold. Go back and give us more emotion. And that's why the female point of view is so important to me. So yeah, female editors.
Well, these sound like, I mean, much more than adventure books. I mean, it sounds like a saga of a lifetime.
It's a
character's eyes.
It's a story. It's fun. You're right. It is a saga of this young man's everything he has to go through. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. He loses very close friends. He loses loves along the way. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but it's give and take. It's give and take in a brutal world where he's dealing with a bunch of crazy people, just crazy animals. And that's what's fun because I have a bunch of characters in these books. One is called Scuttletoes, for example. Long, tall Willie, who is a dwarf. I've had a lot of fun with characters. And pirates were interesting because religion never played a part in any of their choices for crewmates. Nationalities don't play a part. If you're a good pirate, you're a good pirate. It doesn't matter what you are, which is kind of interesting. They were more democratic than during the period that we give anybody credit for.
Right, and that would be unique too, because during that time period, it was very class-based and very segregated.
You had rulers, you had kings, you had monarchs, but you didn't have democracy. That just wasn't part of the deal in Europe. And that is, if you think about it, voting a captain in, if he does bad, we vote him out. And here are the shares that we get. But if somebody gets injured, we're going to give them an extra share. And You know, there's just so much you learn as I went through, just small things that I was able to pull out and make a bigger deal out of. A lot of fun along the way. You know, people say, okay, they all wear eye patches and had a parrot on their shoulder, okay? And I said, yeah, a lot of them did wear eye patches. If you're on a wooden ship and a cannonball hits it, there's going to be splinters that fly everywhere, and you could get hit in the eye, and therefore you could lose eyesight in that eye. But more importantly, it was very dark below decks, incredibly dark. If you have a patch on one eye and you put it on the other eye, you have night sight as you go down below. So they were not stupid people. They were very, very smart, smart in their own ways.
Well, I was going to say I mean, you have to know everything about everything on that ship or you're going to die, right? So,
Well, here's one end, and I've got to confess to this. I've never sailed a ship in my life. I have no idea how to do it. And what I confess early in the book, first book, is that I'm not going to treat you to trying to teach you how to be a sailor. I'm going to tell you a story. And I'm not going to get into the details of sailing a ship and the masts are here and this and lanyards and everything else, because that's just going to bore you. I'm going to give you a story. And it's not, sometimes it's going to be on the sea and sometimes it's going to be in the islands. Completely different. I tried to be different. I really did.
yeah, it sounds like you've painted an amazing saga story. So I think that it seems like it would appeal to definitely a broad audience, whether YA up to all the way up to adults, just for that escape potential.
And the other thing I've tried to do is I don't use well, I use detailed description. So there's a lot of description words that some of the 14-year-olds, there's no way they would even know. They'd have to look it up what I'm talking about with some of the words. And not to be difficult, but just to be magical as I write. When I write, I want to hear it in my mind that it sounds good, that it has a great flow, almost like poetry, but it has the descriptive that I am conveying a scene and everybody can understand what I'm talking about.
I like that too. When I see new word, I like seeing new words because then I can look it up and I've learned something. So yeah.
And there's quite a bit. That's why I try to fixate on little things that can be meaningful and different to people. There's games that I play in different taverns, different card games that they will play, different dice games that they played. And I even in the fourth book, because nobody walked the plank. That was the silliest thing in the world. If you wanted to get rid of somebody, you grabbed them by the collar and you threw them off the ship. Just that simple. But what I figured was, okay, in every pub in the world, there are barrels. In every pub in the world, there's a slat of wood. If I put a slat of wood on top of two barrels and put two individuals up on top to play King in the Mountain or walk the plank, see, and I walk the plank that way, and it's not anything to do with where it used to be.
Interesting.
There's a lot of there's brutal sports during that period. Animal sports and human sports were a big deal. So they had the ratters. They would put a terrier in with 50 rats to see how long it took to kill them. They had dog fights. They had cockfights, and I even get into chimpanzee fights. Brought over from Africa. So I've kind of I've taken a little bit creative license. But I try to bring some interest to, if you're in a pub, there's got to be some games going on. There has to be some entertainment besides the soiled doves and the booze.
Well, I would definitely put this in the category of historical fiction too, correct? Because
absolutely, I tried to straight and narrow on not putting something in that wasn't real.
Okay.
And I've got a daughter who is a history buff, and I always give her the books early and say, please, Shan, look these over and tell me what I missed. And there was one, she came back to me. I think I had rat highways. What happens on a ship when they're docked, there's lines going down to the dock that kind of anchor them. So rats can get up and off the ship. And I called it Rat Highway. She said, Dad, there was no highways then.
The
I said, well,
highway.
wait a minute, Shan, there was highway robberies. There was the highwaymen
Oh, okay.
in England. I said, okay, I'll put it rat roadways. Made her happy. But she's tough. She will not let me get away with a lot of stuff.
Well, that's
But
great.
it is varied and it is wild, and it's every chapter there's something different. It goes from being peaceful and calm to just chaos, and vice versa. It'll keep you going. It'll keep you interested. And one of the nicest comments I get from people are, I don't want to rush through your book because I enjoy it so much. And that, as an author, man, that just blows you away.
That is definitely a great.
That's the only reason I've written these books, is for people to read them. I don't care about the money. The money's unimportant. I'm on a retirement. I did really well at Kellogg, and they've taken care of me. God love them. So it's not money that I care about anymore. It's people reading and enjoying. That's a big deal.
Fine. Well, let's make sure that everybody knows where to find you and the name of your books. So Kevin C. Smith.
Kevin C. Smith. The first book is Remarkable Rascal, all under the Bilge Rat Pirate Adventurer series. The second book is Black Tarantula. The third book is Demon Pirate. The fourth book is Viking Pirate.
Fine. And
they are,
believe me,
they are visible.
Okay.
That's Viking Pirate. This you can see, this jumps. And that really comes from me, the years at Kellogg's doing packaging. I got a couple of my old cronies to help me. I got an art director, and we had a freelance artist who was absolutely terrific. And between them, we've created some pretty interesting looking covers. And I've fought with publishers. This is interesting. Publishers will say, your name's not big enough. And I said, nobody knows my name. I'm a nobody. Why would they care about my name? What's important is the visual. That's where eyes are gonna go to the book. That's gonna attract them. After that, yeah, they may look at my name, but they're gonna look at the back cover to see what it's all about.
That's definitely what a reader does.
That was the fight I have constantly with publishers. They're the experts, I'm not. But I'm the expert on cereal packaging. And that's what we did. We put blurbs, little pictures on the front that got the interest, that got them to pick it up. Either that or the kids dragging on their mom's coat and saying, Mom, I got to have that.
Yeah, the little Rice Krispie people,
yep,
right?
Yep. Snap, crackle, and pop. It was a great training, and it was a lot of fun. It wasn't work, it was a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. And your website is, what is the name of your website?
It's www.pirate-tail.com.
Fine. Pirate Tail. Thank you so much, Kevin, for being here.
It's been a pleasure. I thank you so very much. You're a great host.
Well, I love learning about your books, and I'm going to have to pick one up for myself. So hopefully everyone else will too.
Tell you what, you send me your address, okay, and I'll sign them and send them to you.
Ooh, one is enough, but yes, that would be amazing. I would love to read it.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.